We'll call the February 21st meeting of council to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll now pause for a moment of silence. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Baker.
Here.
Bullock.
Here.
Keppel.
Here.
Litton. Absent. Marks.
Here.
Rader.
Here.
Schachner. Absent.
I'll move to excuse the absences of Councilman Litton and Schachner.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Reading and disposal of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held February 6, 2023.
Move to dispose of the minutes without the necessity of reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. And, yes, and before we get going anymore, pursuant to Lakewood Codified Ordinance 109.01B1, as the acting president of council, I'm calling for council's meeting this evening, February 21st, 2023, to be held by video conference due to the special circumstance of the illness of Councilman Rader. Under Ordinance 109.01C, Councilman Rader need not be present for the purpose of voting and determining a quorum. Move, yes. So without objection, we're going to move public comment to the top to welcome Mr. Dave Connolly from First Energy.
Thank you very much. Mayor George, members of council, thank you for having me out this evening. So my name is Dave Connolly. I am the Regional External Affairs contact with the illuminating company, First Energy, and I am your liaison from the company back to public officials, police, fire, service department, emergency personnel, community organizations. It's a pleasure to be out tonight. I wanted to come out and finally formally introduce myself as your rep. I know I've worked with a number of you either directly or indirectly, either through some notifications I've had over the last few years, but with some other circumstances going on in the world, I wasn't able to make it out to one of these meetings yet, so it's great to be here tonight. I've been with First Energy, just a little bit history on me. I've been with First Energy about 13 years, been in the external affairs space for about 4 of the most recent years, then over on the western suburbs over the last 2 years. So I've been Lakewood's rep for about the last 2 years. I'm a lifetime West Sider, live actually right down the street now, just on the other side of the Detroit Road Bridge. So I had to run and pick my daughter up at the Beck Center before I came over here tonight. So Lakewood's close, and it's good to be around and see everybody. So as I mentioned, I've worked directly with some of you and hopefully indirectly with others. You've maybe seen some correspondence from me, especially around storm time. You might get the emails or notifications about what's going on during major storm events. Hopefully that's useful because, and if you haven't, I don't feel that offended, because most people don't necessarily think about the power company until, you know, the lights aren't on, which for those folks up in the front, I did leave at your station a little pamphlet aptly titled Tips for Managing Through a Power Outage, because as much as I wish I could come up here and stand and say, they'll never need that, I can promise that most likely we will need, and there will be another power outage eventually. So I wanted to talk about a few things, how to help your constituents manage through those and yourselves manage through those most effectively. So the number one most important thing during any power outage that a resident can do is to call First Energy. Call the illuminating company, notify us of the power outage. You can call us, you go to firstenergycorp.com. There's even ways to text outages and get to let us know. If residents don't know that there's a power, or don't let us know there's a power outage, we don't know about it, we can't respond to it. That is the fastest, most efficient way to get power restored in those events. Whether that's a single outage or, and I'll talk about in a second, a storm situation. Some of the things that we do as a company proactively to try to mitigate power outages for residents, you'll know our forestry services, our vegetation management services, where we go on a 4-year regular cycle. We go out and we trim the right-of-ways. You'll see the contractors come through the neighborhoods. They do that work to clear our equipment to make sure tree-related outages within the right-of-way, the best we can, are mitigated. Additionally, we do 5-year full-circuit inspections where members of our company will go out and visually inspect, and they also use different equipment to look for hot spots or other issues on the system that can proactively address any issues or concerns that may come up on those inspections. Now, as far as storms go, that's going to happen. We can't control the weather, but we do have processes in place to address storm-related outages and restoration for that. And actually, our process for storm restoration usually begins at least a few days, could be a week or longer, before the event happens. And that's because we employ meteorologists that monitor the weather, monitor storm systems, to watch for those events that come through. With those reports, we look at that to try to determine staffing levels, what we might need to do if we have to shift people in and out of our service territory to react to that storm event. Further, once the event actually happens, the first thing we're doing is working on hazards. We want to make sure that the public is safe. These are downed wires, broken equipment, anything that can really get anybody hurt. So that's the first thing we're doing. This is a situation where you may see a crew come into your neighborhood, do something, and then leave. I promise they're not leaving you, they're not abandoning you, they're moving on to the next hazard to make sure nobody gets hurt. Once hazards are under control, we move to critical infrastructure, hospitals, fire departments, things like that. Then we work largest outages down to the smallest. We work that in conjunction with the critical pieces. So with transmission, down to substation level, down to the local neighborhood distribution system, and then down to your single no lights at the end of the storm. Again, as I see my time's about to run out, or maybe I already did, this could be like an hour longer presentation. I won't hold you that long, I promise. But the most important thing when residents are calling you is that they really should be calling FirstEnergy, letting us know the outage is there. They can go to firstenergycorp.com. Smartphones are a wonderful thing these days. Our website has the outage map. Once the outage has been reported, you'll start seeing that blip all the way on the map. You see those things sometimes on the news. It looks kind of like a shotgun blast during major storms. You can zero in on your neighborhood, get information on cause, on estimated time of restoration. It's really a great tool for that. But again, please let us know when there's an outage. It's the main thing you can do. So with that, I appreciate it, the opportunity to come out. I look forward to continue working with you all, and thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly. Colleagues, do you have any questions for Mr. Connolly? Councilman Bullitt.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly, for joining us and getting introduced and offering to be our friendly neighborhood. Get on it, fix it, contact with a very large utility company. Do you have information about how to help property owners become more energy efficient? I'm interested in getting a workshop together in our community to simplify the complexity of that, make it more easy to do, because there's a lot involved. I know over the years FirstEnergy has had, but I don't know if you still have energy efficiency programs, or even if it's not a formal program, perhaps you've got expertise or information about discounts, rebates, et cetera. Is that something that rings a bell for you? And do you see potential to potentially work together on helping educate Lakewood property owners about how to make themselves more energy efficient?
Yeah, absolutely. We have information available for that, and I'll be sure to get back to you and council with that. A lot of it would be available just for firstenergycorp.com. Lots of information, believe it or not. On there, you can see information from our storm restoration process. There's a video that probably speaks to it a lot better than me directly on our website. There is information as far as energy efficiency. I don't believe there are energy efficiency grants at this time in Ohio. Those expired a number of years ago, but there is information on how to do that. So I can gather that and share that with you and the rest of council.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Would it be, Ms. Bach, would it be okay if, there you are, thank you. If I gather that and send that and share that with you to share with everyone? Excellent.
Councilman Baker.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. And I just say, not a question, but a thank you to Mr. Conley. He is very responsive. My first week on council, a young father reached out because there was a large pinging on a big transmission line near his house on the railroad tracks, and his daughter couldn't fall asleep, and it had been going on for some time. I called Mr. Conley, and within a week, it was resolved, and I felt like I finally accomplished something. So it was very rewarding, and I'd like to thank Mr. Conley for being responsive and kind of, to him, it's probably a simple structure of who knows what and who does what within the organization, but for us outsiders, it's very helpful to have someone kind of navigate you through that labyrinth structure.
Thank you, Councilman Baker. Yeah, like I said before, I am your liaison as public officials back to the company. When there's questions, concerns, that's what I'm here for. I can help you navigate that. There's a lot of standard ways to do stuff, but obviously we live in the real world and things are always kind of messy, so I'm here to help you out. That's what I'm here for. I'm your resource.
Thank you, Mr.
Great.
Conley.
Thank you very much, and have a great evening.
Thank you. All right. I see we have some guests with us also, so without objection, I'd like to move items 11 and 12 to the top of the agenda. Should I read it? Yeah, go ahead and read it. All right, we're a little shorthanded tonight. Shorthanded and short-counseled, so we're... all right, so item 11, communication from Planning Department regarding Community Health Needs Standing Committee.
Good evening, Councilwoman, Council Vice President Keppel, members of council. Following the completion of the community-focused health needs assessment and supporting action plan, work on the recommendations provided by the Center for Community Solutions has continued. First among the recommendations, as discussed in the Health and Human Services Committee on January 23rd, is the creation of a standing committee to formalize the critical community partnerships forged through the CHNA process and provide the necessary oversight. Cross-sector collaboration and resources necessary to analyze and move select opportunities for action contained in the action plan forward into implementation. The Department of Planning and Development has worked alongside the Department of Human Services, the Healthy Lakewood Foundation, and the Three Arches Foundation, both of whom are here with us this evening, and most recently the City School District to develop the attached resolution, creating the recommended standing committee. We respectfully request your consideration of this resolution as the first step to move the action plan forward into implementation. As I mentioned, our partners are here in the audience, and I'd also recognize Dave Voss, who's here to my left this evening, is really the city's leadership on this effort. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you. I'll move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Item 12, Resolution 2023-09. A resolution to take effect immediately, provided it receives the vote of at least 2/3 of the members of council, or otherwise to take effect at the earliest period allowed by law, establishing the Community Health Needs Standing Committee to support the development and implementation of actions related to identified health needs, as well as the consideration of future opportunities for community partnerships, programming, and other initiatives to build and sustain a culture of health action in Lakewood. I will move to refer that resolution to the Health and Human Services Committee.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Would either of our guests or Assistant Director Boss or Director Leininger wish to speak further on this issue at this time? You don't have to, but you may if you wish to.
Just thank you for the opportunity, Madam Vice President. I'll just, the resolution, the recommendation, I just want to highlight that, it's in the action plan. It was part of that whole process, but really the intent behind, I think, this standing committee and the cross-sector collaboration that it stands for, it has its basis if you go back, with the residents of the community. both the Active Living Task Force as well as Live Well Lakewood, kind of the past two kind of major resident task forces or working groups that have looked at this, but especially Live Well Lakewood, which really dug into the social determinants of health, and that's where that language about establishing a culture of health action in the community comes from, is from their recommendations. But that continual kind of emphasis of the importance of cross-sector collaboration, building on the partnerships that I feel like we've worked very hard to establish and maintain through the current CHNA process, to move those forward. And just in all of the sharing of both the CHNA and the action plan with other groups, I just want to emphasize that we continually heard that you cannot let this sit on a shelf, and that it's got to have some form of formal structure to advance the opportunities that are contained in that action plan. And I feel like the partnerships that we've established are critical towards advancing those and having that structure. And I know it's another committee, it's another working group, but health action, social determinants of health, are so ingrained in just about everything that we do, that having this basis and continuing these partnerships, I think, is critical towards getting those things implemented and working those things that require the work to get them closer to implementation. That's the critical nature of it.
Thank you. And I'll just, did you have something you wanted to add, Director? Okay. Well said. And I'll just add, personally having worked with some of our partners on this, how excited I am for this to move forward. And I think in January, we recognized Poverty Awareness Month. A lot of the social determinants of health are similar to those with poverty, and it isn't something that we can address haphazardly. We have to have a combined, thought-out plan. So I'm looking forward to this discussion in Health and Human Services, and we'll move on. So that motion has, unless either of you wanted to.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilman Bullock.
Madam Vice President. I had the chance to get coffee with you and Assistant Planning Director Boss and Kristen Broadbent of Three Arches and Kate Ingersoll of Healthy Lakewood Foundation. I think it would be helpful if the foundation directors would share here some of the context that you shared with me over coffee, which was words to the effect of having a broader group to help you do your own work in terms of either forming or putting into context new funding initiatives or new funding proposals. The reason I wanted to suggest you come and share a few words now is I think I garbled what you said, and you could say it better. Is that ringing a bell? I'm getting cautious smiles, but not. Is that microphone working? Might have to bend it closer.
Got it. Okay.
There you go.
Good.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think we brought up some of these points that are at the last discussion around the CHNA, but it was great to have a conversation and be able to do kind of a Q&A around how we're envisioning this. And obviously, the most important point is that this is a real opportunity for a range of groups that want to affect change in our community to come together with a central sort of governing structure and a commitment and a structure of accountability to work together on these issues. And we have recognized that there's lots of different opportunities, lots of different organizations that are working both on the regional and state and local levels. And oftentimes there's lack of communication about efforts and opportunities for solving issues or for working on certain issues in the community. And this is a way that we can kind of create a structure, a strategy to address those, to really assess and evaluate the resources that are available to us and sort of right size and scope what we can do and where we're going to have to look for additional support, where other kind of community players, county players, state players could potentially influence the work that we want to do. And so I think all of us have just recognized that as I said before, none of us can do this alone. We need to do this in partnership, and this is really the first opportunity to create a formal structure to do that. We're really excited that the schools are also invested in doing this work, and from my vantage point, I see lots and lots of groups coming to us for funding and see many sort of duplicated requests, people that want to work on the same issues, but if we were sort of combining our efforts, we would probably have a lot more impact. And so this is an opportunity and a place for us to practice as a foundation and work in collaboration with other organizations that have similar missions and strategies. I hope, is that helpful, Councilman Bullock?
Thank you. Yeah, it is. Maybe the better way to say it is, you're helping me refresh my memory. You're looking to go upstream from treating symptoms or treating health problems, chronic health problems, going upstream to try to get to the causes and get into prevention. And to do that requires a lot of capacity that even foundations don't have on their own.
Great, well said.
Okay, thanks.
I'm happy to answer any other questions. And if there's anything else you'd like to share as well. Okay.
And this will be going to committee, right, did we actually vote yet, or we're still in discussion? Okay, but we'll likely be going to committee, should we actually get to our vote. So we will have time for more discussion, but certainly. Any other colleagues? Okay.
Thanks
Thank
so
you,
much.
Ms.
All right.
Ingersoll. All right, so now, we have a motion and a second. We just had discussion. So all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that motion passes. Oh. Am I asking right now? Tristan, Councilwoman, who's going to give you a promotion. Clerk Bach couldn't hear your vote. Could you repeat?
Sure, I can't unmute that fast. I vote yay.
Okay, thank you. All right. Yes, back to the top. So we're at
Item
item
1.
no, item 1.
Item 1, report from Finance Committee meeting held February 13, 2023.
All right. This is me too, since Councilman Schachtner isn't here. Dear colleagues, Finance Committee met February 13th, 2023 to discuss two pieces of legislation authorizing the administration to pursue strategies to finance and procure vehicles and equipment previously approved as part of the 2023 capital budget. The committee first discussed Ordinance 03-2023, which authorizes leases for specific equipment in an amount not to exceed $3,695,000. Director Rankator presented a substitute version which removes the reference to a specific vendor, allowing the administration flexibilities to select the lowest and best bid at the appropriate time. After productive dialogue, the committee voted to recommend adoption of substitute ordinance 03-2023. Next, the committee discussed Resolution 2023-08, which authorizes the administration to forego the usual competitive bidding process in order to procure specific equipment, which is allowable under Lakewood Codified Ordinances, Section 111.04. Members of the administration persuasively explained the unique market factors and supply chain issues preventing the city from purchasing this equipment through its usual processes. After robust discussion, the committee was satisfied that there are sufficient reasons to forego competitive bidding in the limited circumstances permitted by the legislation and moved to recommend adoption of Resolution 2023-08. Sincerely, Jason Schachtner, Chair. I will move to receive and file that report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 2, substitute ordinance 3-2023, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing the Director of Finance to enter into equipment leases and forms approved by the Director of Law on behalf of the City of Lakewood.
I'm going to move to defer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 3, Resolution 2023-08, a resolution to take effect immediately permitting the Mayor, Director of Public Works, Finance Director, and Purchasing Manager to purchase certain vehicles and equipment without advertising and competitive bidding or specific approval of council as required by Lakewood Codified Ordinances, Section 111.04.
I'll move to defer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 4, ordinance 48, 2022A, an ordinance to take effect immediately to provide for creating positions and rates of pay for full-time and certain part-time annual salaried employees and hourly rate employees not covered by a collective bargaining agreement in the several departments, divisions, and offices of the city, including Chief of Fire, Chief of Police, and Civil Service Commissioners, and superseding ordinance 48, 2022.
I'll move to defer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Councilman Baker.
Bullock.
Oh, sorry, I'm
the,
sorry.
No problem. Are we not going to have a discussion about this or deliberation, or are we doing it on the floor? I guess it's not in committee, as far as I can tell.
Well, it was introduced last.
The previous meeting, right?
Yeah, right. We can.
And I'm not asking for it tonight. I'm just wondering, prior to a potential vote.
Sure. I think the communication that came with it explained, but we can go to Director Dillinger if we wanted. We have time tonight.
Thank you. Through you, Vice President Keppel. Yes, this is simply a title change. We, from time to time, review job descriptions, which most positions outside of union contracts are civil service. So those job description changes go through civil service, but they're also reflected in our salary ordinance. So for everything to line up, we've reviewed our civil service secretary / mediation coordinator position. And really, that position doesn't do much mediating these days and really is much more heavily focused on public records. So it's simply an update to remove the mediation of the title and insert public records.
Any questions for Director Dillinger? Okay. Right. Where are we on? Move already? We did.
Yeah, we were on discussion.
We're on discussion. Any
for-
further discussion?
Madam Vice President?
Yes, Councilman Rader.
Thank you. This, the only question is mediation programming coordinator. I guess what changes have happened over time? I know that, at least I can say now, it's like 5 or 6 years ago when I started, I feel like getting long in the tooth, but we used to do some mediating, neighbor between neighbor disputes and things like that. Has that declined? Has there been any change there, or was that always just sort of a very minimal part of one person's job here?
We have seen that go down. We just haven't seen as many cases come forward that have needed mediating. So the individual in this position will certainly still have that part of their job description. It's just, yes, it has decreased over the last few years. So we've just restructured it.
Very good, thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, the motion's been made and seconded to defer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 5, ordinance 1, 2023, an ordinance to take effect immediately to approve the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances and to provide for the publication of such new matter. And we have a substitute version that's been loaded into Granicus.
So I will move to substitute.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Madam Clerk. You do a roll call.
Baker,
Yes.
Bullock,
Yes.
Keppel,
Yes.
Marks, Rader.
Yes.
All right, and that motion passes, and we're ready to adopt. So we will move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Madam Vice President, rather, I just want to make sure we understand what the substitute version changes are. For eyeballing it, it looks like there's 2 additional changes, is that correct? Or two additional items that are included in codification compared to the original,
I believe that is correct.
49-2022 and 2-2023.
I believe that's correct.
Okay,
I'm getting a nod from Clerk Bach.
okay, wonderful. Okay, thank you.
All right. Where are we on this?
So we were discussing.
We were in discussion, so any further discussion? All right, Madam Clerk.
Baker?
Yes.
Bullock?
Yes.
Keppel?
Yes.
Marks?
Yes.
Rader?
Yes.
Item 6, communication from President Litton and Vice President Keppel regarding ARPA application.
Right. Dear colleagues, as the opportunity to help our residents and city services has come in the form of the American Rescue Plan Act, it is incumbent upon City Council to utilize a simple, uniform, and specific method of collecting and reviewing potential beneficiaries of the following funds. Allocate a remaining $505,000 to a shared City Council purpose. Allocate $1,400,000 to divide among the 7 council members of City Council, $200,000 each. Allocate or defer $1 million to the next City Council to utilize in 2024 and beyond. Attached to this letter, you will see an application form devised to do just that. Additionally, this communication should act as a call for proposals to any department, nonprofit, organization, business, or other entity interested in bettering our city using these funds. To allow us for the greatest transparency and equitable opportunity for all community partners, and to provide a mutually understood timeline for all council members to submit ideas for shared funding, applications shall be reviewed using the following process. The attached application, also posted on the City Council webpage, shall be submitted by interested parties by midnight on March 1st, 2023, to be considered in the initial batch of funding requests. Applications submitted after the March 1st deadline may be considered in future meetings if funds remained. Council members may submit applications themselves or invite entities to submit with their sponsorships. Entities need not have obtained a council member sponsorship in advance to submit an application. We expect to begin council to begin deliberation on the first batch of applications at the March 6, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting and to continue in committee as needed. Once council has completed deliberations in Committee of the Whole on the first batch of funding, a resolution or resolutions will be introduced at a regular meeting of council for a vote to officially allocate funds. The use of these funds may present difficult decisions for each of us individually and as a whole. Please make every effort to seek to fund projects that fulfill ARPA guidelines, do not create unfunded future expenses, and are not duplicative of projects undertaken by the city or other entities. Finally, because we all have individually designated funds, note that sponsorship of a project denotes utilizing some of your funds. For instance, if 3 council members sign on to sponsoring a project, they are committing a portion of their funds to the project. Use of the shared ARPA funds will require a majority before moving on to approval. Our hope is that this communication and application provides sufficient guidelines for utilizing these funds. And I'll just add that that application is up on the City Council website. And many thanks to IT Director Mike Coletta for helping us get some new snazzy software to allow folks to sign that, fill that out and sign it online. I will move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I will amend my motion to refer that communication to Committee of the Whole. Thank you.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Madam Vice President?
Yes, Councilman Rader.
Thank you. Well done. This is a wonderful start to the process here. This process seems to make sense to me, so thank you for taking the reins here and helping pull it together. The one question I had after going through the form online and looking at it here, though we're encouraging folks in the community to, especially organizations, to submit applications, it does look like this is just meant for council members just at a glance. It's kind of discouraging, I think, if I am an outside organization. Just because it looks like it requires, on first blush, a council member to sponsor that going into the gate instead of later on. Is that intended, or is that something that can be made a little bit more clear in order to encourage applications from organizations?
Sure. Thank you for the question. It is, we did state in the communication, but you're right, it's not on the form that the sponsorship is not required. In the online application, this is what we're looking at on the screen is the PDF version of how it will look when all compiled, but the online application indicates which fields are required versus those that are optional. So the sponsorship boxes are not required boxes.
Okay.
Yeah, so would suggest, since council ultimately will be voting on this, that it would probably behoove organizations to reach out to council members that they'd like their support, but they need not have that support in advance to apply.
Thanks for clarifying. Appreciate it.
Any other discussion? Questions?
Madam Vice President?
Yes, Councilman Bullock.
I agree with Councilman Rader. This is a very strong process. Thanks for pulling it together, you and President Litton. So we have some parameters to work on, and also some beginning to define expectations publicly and work through them. March 1 is fast approaching. I could easily see some of the ideas that I might want to incubate with community partners taking longer than that. Could we have a little bit of the best of both worlds, where we have around on March 1st and get started deliberating March 6th, but also leave it open another 2 weeks beyond that, or, or even, I don't know how long beyond that, but I would hate to scramble to meet that deadline and miss something, or, to me, we have a little bit of additional time, and if there's some quality deliberation and community support building around a proposal, I would find that helpful to have a little bit of extra give in the schedule. But also, excuse me, but also start March 1 and March 6, because it is good to have, urgency and get moving.
Thank you, Councilman Bullock. And I agree that I know many of us have been anxious to get going on this process, so wanting to be responsive to that. I think the intention here is that the March 1st deadline would be for the applications that will be considered on beginning March 6th. So should all funds not be, allocated on March 6th, which I wouldn't anticipate, but we won't know until we see them. I would expect that, yes, we'll have a second batch of process.
Are we, so at the March 6th, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but are we having a long work session, and the expectations we'd work through every proposal, as long as that's not a very high number, and we'd make a final decision on March 6th about anything we have in hand? Or will there be a couple of deliberations?
I think we would continue the work until it's done,
Okay.
essentially. So whether it's at that meeting or if we need to schedule more meetings,
Okay.
that would be my expectation.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, Councilwoman Marks.
Thank you. I agree with Councilman Bullock. Actually, I was surprised when I got this form and I saw what was required to have prepared by March 1st. I was expecting to get this form after our last council meeting. It was indicated we would be getting this within a couple of days. There's no way that I could actually get together with anybody that I would be planning to meet with about this by March 1st. It would be impossible. So I feel a bit under the gun with that.
Councilman Baker.
Yes, thank you, Madam Vice President. And I appreciate the process. It's really good. I share a little bit of the concerns about the March 1st deadline, but I suppose that, ultimately, anything that would need to come out of committee of whole would need 4 votes. And probably, we'd prefer to have some unanimity within our ranks. So we will be considering, different projects on March 7th. I believe that's the date. But, we still ultimately control the process here on this dais. So looking forward to it. And I do hope that either, the administration maybe can share this with the public through social media channels, and then whatever ways that us as our individual council members can do that as well. I think there's, lots of creative ways to use these funds, but I think we need to see what the community brings forward, so I'm excited to get moving on that.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. So Motion has been made and seconded to refer that communication to Committee of the Whole. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes.
Item 7, communication from council members Baker, Keppel, and Marks regarding safe gun storage, Be Smart program.
Councilman Baker.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Dear colleagues, secure firearm storage is an essential part of home and community safety. With more guns in homes and cars due to the surge in gun sales over the past 2 years, it is more important than ever for parents, community leaders, and caregivers to know how to secure gun storage protects children. Tragically, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a rise in unintentional shootings by children and gunfire on school grounds. And in 2020, gun suicide among children ages 17 and under reached the highest rate in more than 20 years. And unimaginably, to me, firearms became the leading cause of death among children in the United States. Storing firearms securely can help prevent these terrible tragedies and keep our kids safe. A program for Every Town for Gun Safety Support Fund, the Be Smart framework is designed to help parents and adults normalize conversations about gun safety and take responsible actions that can prevent gun deaths and injuries. Lakewood's Be Smart volunteers have been rolling out a plan to build awareness about the importance of gun-safe storage through presentations in our community. The Be Smart acronym stands for Secure All Guns in Your Home and Vehicle, Model Responsible Behavior Around Guns, Ask about the presence of unsecured guns in others' homes, Recognize the role of guns in suicide, and tell your peers to be smart. Lakewood Be Smart volunteers made presentations to the Lakewood City Council, or Lakewood Council of PTAs and the Lakewood Board of Education in 2022, and last spring met with the Lakewood City School District. The feedback has been positive, and thanks to its practical message. Keep guns locked and stored separate from ammunition, and ask about the presence of guns in the homes and vehicles of friends and family members. The goal is to normalize the conversation about safe gun storage in Lakewood and make Lakewood a state model in this regard. The Be Smart leadership team is Patricia Barley, Stacy Ross, and Melissa Meany. They are currently focused on identifying presentation opportunities and channels for distributing Be Smart links and materials at events through community organizations and venues. Be Smart now has 6 trained community volunteers who will be able to make presentations starting in March of 2023. We request that this communication be referred to Public Safety Committee to allow the volunteers to give a presentation on the Be Smart program to raise awareness about this critical issue that can quite literally save lives. And I'd like to add that just today, the administration, Chief Assistant Director, Law Director Swallow indicated that they'll put some information on the city's website. And if Councilman Shackman was here, I'm sure he'd buttress the point that the state of Ohio has taken away a lot of ability for localities to regulate guns, and they've made it basically impossible. So as a parent to young children, as someone who sees the scourge of gun violence and what it's doing to the youngest and most vulnerable amongst us, if this is literally all we can do, then I want to have information from trained volunteers to show us how we can be better about it. So that's why I'm bringing forth this communication with Councilmember Keppel and City Marks as well.
Thank you, Councilman Baker, and I will add that I was honored to be part of this communication. I appreciate pulling it together with Councilman Marks. Councilman Marks, did you want to make some remarks?
Councilman Baker, I want to acknowledge your leadership on this. Thank you very much. I think anything that we can do to keep the guns out of kids' hands and to make people aware of how important it is to, I love the fact that they're encouraging to ask questions. If your kid is doing a sleepover at someone's house, I would want to know if there's guns in the home and determine whether or not I feel it's safe for my child to be there. So I think that's a very important part of the education of this. So thank you for bringing this forward. And thank you to the administration and Mayor George for really being on top of this too and really supporting this. I know for you to have a small child in your family, this is an important issue to you. So thank you for acknowledging that.
All right, so we have, did you move to?
I indicated it in the communication.
Okay. I'll be happy to. So I'll move to refer this to the Public Safety Committee.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes.
Item 8, report from Vice President Keppel regarding tree advisory and education board meetings.
The Tree Advisory and Education Board did not meet in January outside of their presentation to council that same month. So the first regular meeting of 2023 was held on February 8th at 6 p.m. The citizen volunteers were joined by tree crew member Patrick Costello and Streets and Forestry project manager Sam Bonvasuto, who has been the city liaison to the group since the retirement of Tom Evans. The group continued work on objectives identified during their annual report to council, including tree protection standards, the Tree City USA Growth Award, private tree planting promotion, and tree giveaway ideas. Tree maintenance assistance grants, root block trial, and working with ODOT to plant trees along I-90 green spaces. Mr. Costello reported that the tree crew has been working with the city engineering team on tree preservation strategies during the current water main replacement, and the group plans, group hopes to welcome Engineer Papke at an upcoming meeting to collaborate on tree preservation best practices and guidelines. Board member Rita Stevens shared more details about the levels of funding for which Lakewood could be eligible through Tree City USA's Growth Award and other programs. Mr. Bonvasuto indicated that Lakewood seems to already meet several of the qualifications which are required to apply for the award. Ms. Stevens shared her experience successfully applying for these awards for her previous municipality and expressed her desire to help Lakewood do the same. It was noted by the group that this award could provide funds to hire an urban forester, and the hiring of that position would help Lakewood both qualify for additional funds and steer many of the initiatives being discussed amongst the group. Finally, the group began discussing possible plans for Arbor Day on April 22nd, 2023. The next meeting of the Tree Advisory and Education Board is scheduled for March 8th at 6 p.m. All are welcome to attend. I will move to receive and file that oral report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Council Vice President?
Councilman Baker.
Yeah, excited to hear that you guys discussed, that the board discussed plantings along the right-of-way areas of I-90. Very near and dear to my heart, so
Yeah.
excited to hear more about that.
Your name was mentioned, so I think they'll be contacting you about your offer to assist with that. So, any other discussion? All right, the motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes.
Item 9, communication from Finance Director Rankator regarding first quarter transfers and advances.
Director Rankator.
Vice President Keppel and members of council, the 2023 first quarter transfer ordinance reflects 25% of the total anticipated transfers between funds that were included within the 2023 appropriations. This also includes advances back to the general fund that were made to the respective funds at the end of 2022. Please place this on the appropriate reading and refer to Finance Committee if necessary for further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. I will move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes.
Item 10, Ordinance 4, 2023, an ordinance to take effect immediately authorizing the transfer in advance of certain funds.
Move to refer to finance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes.
Item 13, liquor permit regarding Amber Room at 13601 Detroit Avenue.
And I believe we received today the report, but this is in, Ward 3. Director Varga, did you have any comment other than what we received from you?
No, just that, Madam Vice President. We, no reason to object from the Law Department. Thank you.
Thank you. And I did hear from Councilman Litton. This is in his ward as a custom. He has no reason to object either. So I will move to receive and file that liquor permit.
Second,
Right? Or no, we just
move to
on.
file with no objection.
But move to file with no objection. Thank
Second.
you. And motion's been made and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that motion passes. Do we have any further public comment? Oh, great. All right. We do. Kate Ingersoll, welcome back to the podium.
Thank you for taking the comment. And I don't have prepared remarks because I just started to look at the ARPA funding application today. And I just wanted to note that from my perspective as somebody who's doing grant making in the community, 1 week is a very quick turnaround. And it also, I think, disadvantages smaller kind of grassroots organizations that may not have the kind of sort of development team or team internally within an organization that can turn around a really quick grant application like that. So I would strongly encourage you to think about how you're going to center groups that may not have that level of capacity to present ideas to you for vetting. And I would also say that there's some information that's not clear for folks around how you'll be vetting the different types of grant of funding that you're offering. So it's unclear kind of what the stipulations are for the larger kind of pool of money that you're looking to do collaboratively as council versus what you would be sponsoring individually as council members. And so it's unclear from kind of the general public stance how people would, what you would prefer to hear from like a larger kind of grant request versus smaller sponsorships from a council member. And so if there's clarification that you can provide about that, either through communication in the committee of the whole meetings or communication that you include on the website, that would be helpful. I think it would also be helpful if you linked to some of the ARPA funding guidelines, because that may not be like top of mind for certain folks and they may not understand what the restrictions are around the funding. And I think it would be helpful for people to understand that as well. Just some suggestions, but want to make sure that there are lots of people in this community who are parts of small groups that have really good ideas, who could potentially come up with some solutions to some ideas that meet the criteria that you have that I think would be worth considering. And I hope that you'll provide a process that will allow them to be included in that.
Thank you for that feedback. And I'll note that one of the intentions of having having this process and having it be mostly done in a public meeting setting and committee of the whole is to shine a light on how we're spending this money, but also to make sure in having this process be open, that we are making sure that we aren't just, as we said in the communication, hearing the loudest, most well-connected voices. So it's a good point that you raise, and I think worth considering. I'd certainly encourage anyone in the public who is interested in applying for these funds to reach out to Council President Litton or myself or the member of council of their choice to discuss this further. All right. I see anyone else signed up for public comment? Announcements from council colleagues. Councilman Baker.
Vice President Keppel, yeah, I was able to speak to the third graders at Hayes today about local government and the future's bright, and also Mayor, they're waiting for you on Friday, and they're going to have tough questions, so watch out.
Great, that's a lot of fun to get to do that, so I'm glad you get to do that. Any other announcements from council members? All right, announcements from the administration. Any? No? All right. I'm just going to make one little comment that I just want to express my personal appreciation to the Lakewood Police Department, Lakewood Fire Department, and our Public Works Department. We had a kind of scary incident on Summit Avenue the other night where we had a electrical wire catch on fire, and all the neighborhoods was out, and we had an almost instantaneous response. And it's one of the many, many reasons why my husband and I chose to live in Lakewood, is how quickly our public safety forces and public works respond to such instances quickly and professionally, and handled it well. So I want to express my appreciation for that. There being no further business to come before council, I will move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. We're adjourned.